So that's Rita on the far left. Next to her is Joyce, Frances. These are not in age order. I need to say that, so my sisters don't get upset with me. Frances in the white in the middle, Karen, and Marie on the end. And if you want to go to the next picture, Jeff, you can right arrow it, and it should just go to the next one. There's a picture of Dad here. I don't recall when this was last taken, so but it's pretty easy. We can go ahead and go to the next one. This is a boy. And one more is yours truly. This is me, Jerry, and I am the youngest. So that's who we are, and if you see us, feel free to please introduce yourselves to us, because as we'll cover Dad's life here in a minute, we all have different, we all overlap in different ways there. So I mean, I know that you're the person from ITT, or you are a ham radio person who's been with my dad, so please feel free to introduce yourself to us and tell us how you know Dad and how you were friends with Rudy. Well, we're going to go to the Indonesia folder now, Jeff. And basically, Dad was born in Indonesia on October 31st, 1925, in a family of 6. And some of these pictures that will just flash up as I speak, not really tied into directly to what I'm saying, but these are photos of Dad in Indonesia. And he attended a school there called U.S.A school, where he learned Morse code and learned how to operate the radio out there. He also worked for Shell as a radio operator, and one of these photos is a picture of Dad in his radio room there out in Indonesia. Also, while out in Indonesia, Rita and Marie were born. So they are our Indonesian-born children, and Dad was also in a band called the Jungle Swingers. And Dad, as you'll see, just loves to play guitar, he loves to arrange music, and even back in Indonesia, he was doing this in his band called the Jungle Swingers. In 1950, Dad married Mom, and I believe there's one of those pictures there of them both. Dad also had a radio show in Indonesia, and actually I didn't know that because Dad didn't talk much about those days with me. I think he had a different relationship with Rita and Marie than he did maybe with myself and Francis, because we were 10 years younger. So he had a radio show, and I don't really know that much about it. I actually learned that he had a radio show as I was preparing for this. With Indonesia under new rule, Dad decided then to go back to Holland rather than stay under the new rule of Indonesia. So in 1954, we moved to Holland. They took a 3-week boat ride on the William, I don't know if I'm saying this right, but the William Roos ship. So for 3 weeks, they traveled by boat over to Holland. Because Mom was pretty sick that entire time. In Holland, they moved to a city called Hengelo. Here, Dad worked for the Royal Dutch Air Force as a radio operator again. And he would be gone a week at a time and would come home on the weekends because of his job with the Radio Air Force. With the Air Force working as a radio. Here in Holland was a boy, Joyce, Karen, and Francis. Saving, of course, the best for last. In 1962, Dad contacted his brother Charlie and said, I want to come to America where you have the opportunity to build your dreams and to build a better life. So Dad asked my brother Charlie, would you sponsor us to come to the country? And Charlie said yes. Now the thing you need to know about Charlie, and we'll have a chance to hear from him later this morning, is he's Dad's older brother and served in the fight of the Second World War for 10 years, from 1938 to 1948. And during those those times, Charlie didn't know how his family was, if they were alive. Charlie, did they know about you? Did they hear from you at all? Yeah. Okay. So, if we get some water, someone for Charlie, that would be great. So, Charlie said, yeah, we'll sponsor you. Come to America. So they came over by plane in 1962 to New York, grabbed a train to Pennsylvania, where Charlie was living at the time, and started our new life here in America. Great things happened in 1963. I was born. See, that's the advantage of doing this. You get to throw in all these great things about yourself. But in 1963, I was born. And Dad worked various jobs, I believe for Pittsburgh Steel. And again, just always doing what he needed to do in order to be working. But they decided it was a little bit too cold there in Pennsylvania. And they decided, Charlie and Dad decided, we're moving west. So they got in their wagons, not their covered wagons, but their Chevy wagons. And they both followed each other from Pennsylvania out here to California. And we have a few old slides of that, so I remember this trip only by slides, family slides. But they covered that. We had 7 kids then in our station wagon, a dog. Charlie, I believe, had his dog, first one. And we came all the way out to California. And once in California, we lived in Downey, Pacoima, and in Santa Susana. Dad worked various jobs in electronics. One of his jobs was for Kaiser Steel out of this place called Eagle Mountain, out past Palm Springs. Again, gone for a week at a time, would come home on weekends. And we have some pictures of that. Jeff, are you able to pull up the California folder? Okay. Sometimes Dad would bring one of the kids during summer out to Eagle Mountain with him, and they would stay out there for the week, and then come home with Dad on weekends, and they would stay with someone else out there while Dad was at work, etc. But that was a big adventure for them to be able to do that. In 1968, I want to back up a minute. The first house here in City Valley was just 4 blocks up Winifred, ironically, on Deborah Street. And how neat is that for us to have this service here, remembering Dad, just blocks away from our first house on Deborah Street. In 1968, Dad bought his first house on Catherine Street, which we still own today. Mom lives there now, and that house is still part of the family, and it's been 40 years or so since we're having that house. Some of our friends, and forgive me if I pronounce names wrong, or maybe if I leave yours out, I do my best to recall all of our friends that I remember as a child going to their house and things. Max Miller, the Tysons, Sevex, Van Ballen, Naberman, Rose Jackson, Marlissas. These were just some of the Dutch people, I believe, that we hung out with, and I just remember the trips going to their homes, and it was just a really special time. In 1976, 2 big things happened. One, his grandkids started, and Dad, as you know, loved his grandkids. The other thing that started was, I'll tell you a little bit, junior high. So that meant that I started to think for myself. So Dad and I started clashing in junior high. And we started arguing about things, and that was a big turning point for me in my relationship with my dad. I'll tell you about that a little bit later as we go. In 1984, Dad made his last and final visit back to Holland. He and Karen